This week on Virtual Lunch, we're joined by Nadine Kearney, Chief Underwriting and Risk Officer of Rokstone.
Nadine's role is to build the framework that allows great underwriters to perform at scale.
She sits at the intersection of risk, technology and growth at Rokstone.
This is a conversation about building sustainable performance, navigating change in insurance, and what leadership really looks like when responsibility is pushed into the business.
I'm James Potter.
I'm Ian Anson.
And this is Virtual Lunch. So Nadine, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
This feels like being in the office, doesn't it?
It does like being in the office.
This is exactly the formation we sit in the office.
The trifecta.
Just realised, yeah. Pop a screen up.
Yeah.
We don't need to. We can stay here.
Yeah. Well,
perfect.
Why don't we just do that then?
Oh, it's a nice space.
Anyway, sorry.
So, well, let's get into it, right? How did you get into insurance?
I'm one of those few people that actively, deliberately chose it. So I studied. I know, right?
Your viewers turn off now.
We found her, the one that existed.
There's not many of us. You've got to search the market. I actively chose it. So I studied international insurance, and with that, I got a great opportunity to move from Ireland to Canada. So it just gave me an incredible amount of experience, and I quickly kind of realised how global the industry was, and that ultimately no day is the same within it. So I found it quite exciting from day one.
I didn't actually know that about you, weirdly. So you studied, did you go to Canada with your studies, or was that your first job? In fact, it's leading to the next question. Talk us through your early career then, and how it's kind of shaped you for the role that you're in now.
My early career, okay, yeah. I am going to bore you. No, I started off as a claims graduate. So I studied international insurance in University of Limerick, and then I got an opportunity to join a claims graduate program for RSA in Canada on the East Coast in Halifax. And from there, I spent 7 months in the graduate program, and then went into a claims role, spent a few years in claims, 5 years in claims, and then went from claims into insurance risk, which was essentially probably what I would now consider to be an underwriting kind of head office-y role, with a risk element to it. So it was all around kind of assessing the performance of portfolios. So little did I know that I was then going to go heavily down the portfolio management optimization route. But I got lots of opportunities within the risk world, working on global projects. So it brought me back and forth to the UK quite a bit. And then I got offered an opportunity to come spearhead a £1 million programme for our underwriting, an underwriting capability programme at the time. And that led me to work across many jurisdictions. So I was running this programme, which had a combination of upskilling underwriting talent and assessing large losses, and portfolio management was a stream within it. I got to roll out that program across UK and Ireland, across Middle East, across Scandinavia, Canada, all over. So it was just a great opportunity, and then it was practice what you preach, and I moved into the UK and international business and started doing portfolio management within property construction, then moved into marine, and ultimately kind of led me to Rokstone.
So thinking back to leaders you've worked with before, obviously, you know, the best here in the room, so you don't have to talk. You don't have to talk about us. But just thinking back to those leaders, you know, what did they teach you? Who are the ones that you sort of remember, and what have you sort of carried through with you?
I feel incredibly fortunate to have worked with some incredibly experienced individuals throughout the course of my career, and too many to probably to name. But I've taken a lot of what they've their experience and their knowledge throughout the years, and then also you look at the qualities of the leaders that you aspire to be, right? And you take the good with you, and hopefully leave the less good behind. But that ultimately kind of, you know, helps shape kind of and build your view and judgment and leadership over the years, doesn't it? So I would say that the leaders that I ultimately thought were the best were the ones that were the most measured. They were able to kind of assess the downside of any decision that they were making, ask the right questions, and ultimately felt comfortable being able to say no. But also, we're always looking for the ability to be able to say yes, first and foremost. So yeah, I've worked with some incredible leaders, and I've taken different things from different leaders over the years.
I'm quite interested in the sort of arc of your career. You mentioned in your early experiences you had a lot of exposure on the claim side and then the risk side and then central underwriting, looking at, you've always been sort of like portfolio level thinking. Could you just talk about your role in Rokstone now, just explain exactly what you're responsible for and how those early experiences set you up perfectly to deliver what you're tasked with delivering?
So my current role is really about ensuring that we perform, that we deliver sustainable, profitable results for our carriers, right? So from an underwriting perspective, it's all around making sure that we deliver against what we say we're going to do, but also, making sure that we have the right kind of guardrails up. We're growing exponentially as a business, and we need the infrastructure to be able to support that growth. From what I took with me from an early kind of career standpoint, I think I learned relatively early on that no decision necessarily sits in isolation. It sits within a portfolio, it sits within a market, it sits, within the cycle that we're operating. So I think I quickly learned that every decision that gets made has a knock-on effect. So I try to think in that kind of way in my day-to-day.
Sounds like RSA, you talked about it a lot in your time at Rokstone. It sounds like a great learning ground. How does the sort of very large corporate, it's like super slick environment, how did it differ, I guess, to Rokstone, sort of the MGA world that you came into?
Yeah.
And how have you felt it sort of develop over the time that you've been here?
Oh, that's a great question. I think within the RSAs of the world, any of the large corps, right? It's a lot of committees, a lot of meetings, a lot of you've got to go through a lot of channels in order to be able to make a decision. And I would say that's we're more empowered within Rokstone to be able to make the right decisions, and we can do it at a much faster pace.
That's so really the point that you mentioned, the word empowerment. So we would say that the underwriting culture we have in Rokstone, we have very empowered underwriting teams. So we actively try to recruit top level talent. We have a bottom up approach to underwriting strategy, appetite and things of that nature. A big element to your role is obviously designing risk and governance frameworks in Rokstone. Could you just talk about how strong risk and governance framework enable us to grow safely rather than being like a business prevention unit, as sometimes people talk about those functions?
You stole it.
Yeah, well, I wrote it, so I get to steal it.
Well, ultimately, I mean, it gives our underwriters confidence to be able to make the right decisions, doesn't it? It sets the right framework, it sets the right kind of benchmark for the teams to do what they do best. So we want to make sure that they continually feel empowered. It's an entrepreneurial environment that we operate within, and but we need to be able to make sure that the underwriters are focusing on what they do best and taking some of the noise out of the individual teams and providing that support and the right kind of guardrails to be able to kind of operate within, but with flexibility. So ultimately it's about setting the right frameworks, but not we should always be operating from a place whereby we're trying to empower the business to write business versus prohibiting them from doing it. And it's sometimes the opposite to what you see in other organizations.
So going back to that, the entrepreneurial underwriters, talk to us a little bit about the natural, what's the best word, tension between, I suppose, central oversight and dealing with entrepreneurial underwriters.
I think there should always be healthy tension, personally.
And is it always healthy within Rokstone?
Within Rokstone, I think it is actually. I don't think that's true for other organisations that I've necessarily worked in, but I do think it is. I think maybe testimony to the teams, but we have the teams typically pulling on us, right? They want a little bit more. They're excited about what we're building within the wider kind of group, but. I think you can use it effectively, right? You want to make sure that you're operating in a way that's, the right way to be operating before somebody else kind of comes in and points it out, right? So it's using it in the right way.
I'm hugely proud of what Rokstone's achieved. Like that sort of 50% ULR. I mean, I class it as our record of achievement or certificate, as it were, of performance. So I think it's brilliant what everyone's doing.
I think I completely agree. I think it's a testimony to the teams that we have in place. I think it's a testimony to the underwriting strategy. We've massively diversified the portfolio to be able to have market resilience. So I think it's testimony to both, the caliber of the people that we have internally and the direction of travel from a leadership standpoint.
So can you just describe then how you've built the risk and governance function to act as an enabler? Just like, if you can be a bit specific, and what's a differentiator for the way that you've designed it as compared to like how it could potentially be in some sort of larger organizations where it can really be a drag?
Yeah, I mean, typically you would have a group kind of compliance function or a group risk function, and they would sit within the group. So they could all be based here in the UK and, don't quite know what's going on within the various different markets. The way in which we've set it up is that the model is has individuals which have the expertise sitting within the market, sitting with the business units in that market, which I think is a key differentiator from a lot of other organizations. So we're building the best practices and the frameworks and the guidance from a group standpoint, but taking into consideration all of the feedback from the individuals sitting within the market. So I'm incredibly proud of the Rokstone risk and compliance team that we have in place. So we've got somebody who's based in the US. We've just hired somebody who's supporting our MENA business, so is based in Dubai, but also supporting Singapore. We've got somebody based in Ireland who supports our European business, and somebody here on the ground in the UK. So we've very much so got subject matter local expertise.
Nice. So moving on to the underwriting part of your role then. Mm-hmm. So your underwriting career has always been at the portfolio level rather than risk or sort of case underwriting. Mm-hmm. Could you just talk about your experience in those central underwriting functions and the value that brings to our team today, and I guess how that's helped you shape what portfolio optimization should look like?
Yeah, I think it goes back to early career to a certain extent. So I worked with some who I would consider some great individuals. So I worked with the group head of property and group head of casualty when I was in RSA, and it was all around setting best practices and and standards and learning lessons across different markets and bringing those lessons into key kind of forums whereby you could share learnings and whatnot. So one of the things that we're trying to build out from a Rokstone standpoint is creating a underwriting excellence and governance function more than what we currently have in place. So really kind of building on the excellence and continuous improvement side of things. So we've got incredibly talented teams across the board here, right? So I think what we could do is continue to let those teams operate in isolation, but nobody's benefiting really. We've got it obviously benefits the bottom line, but ultimately we should be sharing learnings and lessons across the board and taking from those and building on them.
I think it's interesting, and when you actually look at Rokstone now, we kind of stopped being an MGA and become more of a virtual insurer. And certainly that's what the market look at us as, and our capacity partners do. So what role would you say that the sort of portfolio optimization has had in that transformation?
I completely agree with you with regards to the virtual insurer. I think we actually look and feel like a carrier. We're 1.4 billion GWP this year, which is incredibly exciting space for us to be in. The portfolio optimization team is really about being able to ensure that the portfolios are growing in the right areas, that where we should be looking to kind of potentially deviate our strategy from and maybe move away from, we're doing that at pace, right? So it's all about real-time insight. It's about being able to move at pace and make more effective decisions versus, waiting till your monthly or your quarterly kind of performance reviews. We should be able to do that on a weekly, daily basis, and that's the world that we're operating. We will be operating, and if we're not doing it across all lines now, we will be in the future.
And I suppose on that same trend, so I like that point James made. We've transitioned from being really an MGA to a virtual insurance company, and the evolution we're going through now, I think, is that we are a really diversified platform for capital to access risk. Mm-hmm. Talk us through how portfolio oversight gives confidence to our capital providers.
How's it changed the conversation?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, we've got Atomx that's being rolled out across the organisation, right? So that's our ultimate kind of our own proprietary system. It's end-to-end platform, but every single data point gets entered into it, right? So we're able to look at that data in real time. Most of our competitors will have systems that they've bought off the shelf. They've then got to try and make fit into their, where a lot of these systems are typically tend to be kind of SME driven, right? And then you've got a round hole square peg. So we're in a space where we're building a system that's fit for our business and allows us to capture data from point of entry, from the initial submission. So I think our tech is allowing us to be able to get more insight, real intelligence, and being able to allow us to capitalize off that intelligence and move, as I said, at pace, right? That's just, data is integral to everything that we're doing at the moment, and our systems are going to allow us to do that.
So you mentioned about Atomx there. From a portfolio optimization perspective, can you talk about the transition going on with Atomx and really what problems we're solving?
I think it's an incredibly exciting time that we're in within Rokstone with the rollout of Atomx, and particularly exciting for the portfolio optimization team that we've built. So it's going to allow for real-time dynamic portfolio optimization. It's allowing us to effectively, you know, when we've got our overall kind of Rokstone strategy, we've got our individual line of business strategies, we're able to incorporate the strategy and the thinking into our platform and allow us to be able to make decisions in hyper speed, right? So, you know,
are you saying that wasn't available before?
Not until we had this platform. So all of that was happening in isolation, but not until we had this platform where we're able to go, actually, when we get a submission, this is absolutely within our appetite. It's working with this strategic partner. It's supporting the appetite of our capacity providers, and it's from a risk quality standpoint, we're actually able to rate it. So it takes away a lot of the noise and brings those types of risks to the top of the priority list for the underwriters. So, you know, it allows underwriters to be able to do what they do best and strips out the noise.
So just thinking about some of those things here, you know, everyone's sort of, I'm going to go as far as bleating about AI, right?
Yeah.
You know, everyone's become AI adopted in the last 3 or 4 weeks following some, you know, someone getting a personal lines quote on ChatGPT.
Are you trying to suggest that people's PR machines have gone into overdrive to protect their stock price?
Well, I mean, some I wouldn't say that, but some may. Well, it's just interesting, right? You know, as I say, I've never seen so many people suddenly become AI enabled in a few weeks. But I suppose, you know, from your perspective, from risk governance, portfolio optimization, and all of that stuff, what should be automated and what shouldn't be automated, in your opinion?
It's a great question, and I think there's no, you know, you can't, you know, data informs the decisions, but you fundamentally can't remove the judgment that underwriters bring to the table, in my view. But I think there's so many things that can be automated. You know, we've gone through a lifetime of, you know, audits, for example, peer reviews being a really painful kind of process for underwriters to have to go through on a monthly basis. That sort of stuff can be automated, and it becomes less about detective controls after the fact. It's more around preventative upfront. So what we should be getting into a cycle of is less around kind of calling it out after the fact, but more around continuous development. And I think that's an exciting space that we're going into. From an automation standpoint, again, license levels as it relates to the risk and governance side of things are being automated through our systems. From a strategic standpoint, as I've just mentioned, being able to kind of make sure that the right risks are hitting the top of the pile, I think that's incredibly invaluable. And then from a partner standpoint, you know, we're able to score the risks that we believe are of quality and make sure that we're delivering those sustainable returns. So it's all encompassing. It touches all avenues. We could probably have a podcast session on that alone.
For sure. So you've been at Rokstone for the whole length of the Atomx transformation. You're heavily involved in a lot of the recruitment, especially in the central teams, but also conversations around succession planning.
Yeah.
The role of the underwriter is changing, or we think it's going to change, or it is changing in Rokstone certainly. How does our investment in technology and just the technology landscape in general change what we want from underwriters? What kind of people and what kind of skill sets are going to make people thrive as underwriters in Rokstone going forward? I think
there's just this general feel with people that, you know, AI is going to replace jobs, and that's just fundamentally not true, right? So we need to be able to, we need individuals who are embracing of tech or embracing of AI and recognize the benefits that it has to their individual roles. So it fundamentally should strip out some of the noise within the underwriting world and allow underwriters to do what they do best. But I think the types of underwriters that we're looking for are individuals that don't just write the individual risk and say, okay, that was a good risk. They take a look at the wider kind of portfolio. They look at the knock-on effect to our capital, to our carriers, and also look at it as it relates to the other lines of business within the group, right? So we're not operating in isolation. We're cross-selling across different lines of business, but the capital that we're using fundamentally is supporting other lines too. So we need to recognise the knock-on effects of what we're doing in the day-to-day and look at the bigger picture.
I think there's a real opportunity for underwriters to move sort of upstream in the process and spend more of their time sort of on the strategic elements of shaping what the portfolio should look like. I think to your earlier points around that portfolio level thinking, but they're going to be ultimately there's an opportunity they can spend less of their time case underwriting or doing a lot of the activities in case underwriting, right? So the sort of design of that decision layer to get the most out of their tech, I think it's a huge opportunity for the next few years for those who have got the systems and the city to execute the plan.
How wonderful it is to be us. So Nadine, cast your mind back into the leadership role that you took within Rokstone. Obviously you're working with some super professional people, stalwarts of the industry and real top tier talent. How did you win the hearts and minds of those people, and what little tricks or things that you learnt along the way that perhaps might be good for listeners and other leaders trying to do similar things? What can you teach them?
That's a great question. I think
I know he wrote it. So when you ask that, what little tricks? The first thing, do you watch The Office?
No.
It's going to fall flat then, isn't it?
Sorry.
Little Brent quote came out. It's not a trick, is it? Knowledge. Sorry. Anyway, go on.
No, you've hit the nail on the head, right? So incredible talent and experts within their individual lines of business. So first one is never pretend to be the expert, right? These guys have some cases 50 years of experience within the industry, within their own individual line of business, and have a wealth of knowledge. So it's learning and absorbing and listening to them, right? Listening is absolutely key and critical, and sometimes people just don't do that too effectively, and
sometimes longer than you need to, right?
That too. So I think listening, understanding their needs, and just understanding how you can help make their day-to-day easier, I think is absolutely critical. And also just, letting them know that you're in it with them, right? I'm incredibly protective of all of my teams, and I want them to feel that, I'm there with them and I'm fighting the same fight that they're fighting. In the trenches, exactly.
Yeah.
I think you made the point about knowing where you're not the expert, but we have like this model where the underwriting teams are quite empowered, right? Yeah. And that is the differentiator for us, why they might choose to be here over somewhere else. But you talked about your early career, your exposure to the sort of risk function, the central underwriting portfolio management. I think that's like really shows why you were the perfect candidate when you took the specialty CEO role on before, where maybe some people might have said, candidly, some people would have said like, oh, well, she's not like done a underwriting leadership role at a syndicate. She's not been head of marine. She's not been head of energy. Why is she the right candidate to be the head of specialty for Rokstone? But
dare I say, prove them wrong?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but I think that it's really clear like the value that you could bring to those people, because like, they didn't really need you to go and bestow a lot of underwriting expertise on them in marine or energy or power generation or property, right? But you brought a lot of experience that the business needed, that they needed, but you did a great job of winning the hearts and minds and bringing people on that journey. And I think unequivocally, you earned everyone's respect quickly across Rokstone, didn't you? So
I think, the testimonies, it's we've got incredible teams within the specialty vertical. When I was running that space, it was the largest vertical of the three verticals, and it operated to 52% ULR at the time when I was running it. So I think the proof is in the capability and the talent that we have, and hopefully I was just helping steer it effectively.
So talk to me about underwriting culture that that you're building around, ownership and accountability. What does kind of owning the outcome mean in practice?
I think it really comes back to having kind of clear roles and responsibilities and accountability, right? So, and that's something that I don't think every organisation does effectively. And I think from an underwriting perspective, I think it's thinking bigger and wider than the individual risk that's been written, and thinking about the impact on the wider portfolio. I also think, being supportive of the individuals within the teams. The best individuals from an underwriting perspective are those that have ownership and feel accountable for when risk doesn't quite go right. It's nature of what we do. Earlier on in my career, one of the best leadership things that I saw was we had some major large losses, and the CEO at the time said, you're not really an underwriter until you've had your first £1 million loss. And it really kind of stuck with me because, it can be the best quality risk, but fundamentally, it
still has losses. So I think, being supportive and recognizing when those things happen, but also learning the lessons on the back end and making sure that, you're writing that back into your appetite, you're making kind of changes where you need to on the back end. So I think it's interesting actually. So you obviously in the business when we changed from the ownership model, obviously we always had the synergy thing going on in the background where obviously the cells had ownership, but obviously we did the shift from giving everyone shares in the business.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a shift within the company, as it were, or how people looked at things, or do you think everyone was always like that already? But
it's a great question. I think there's more kind of we all have collective ownership for sure. I do think we typically tend to hire those individuals in anyway, right? So we have great caliber people who it's a family-led business first and foremost, and I think everyone feels that they're part of that kind of that culture where we're all in it together. But I do think there's that kind of now collective ownership, and if it wasn't on paper and it wasn't, financially enticing, I still think that was there before, but I think it's more apparent now.
How do you want the underwriting teams and the PM teams, the whole business, to respond when something does go wrong at portfolio level?
It's the nature of what we do, right? There will always be moments, there will be moments where we'll recognize, God, we entered into that territory and it wasn't quite what we thought it was going to be, and vice versa. But I think it's acknowledging it and recognizing where you can remediate it, where there's an opportunity to be able to make it profitable, and then recognizing where there's an opportunity to just say, listen, we've got to walk away from it. I think just having that kind of that general kind of openness and willingness to have a discussion around what's working and what's not is absolutely critical to the success of a portfolio.
And do you think that becomes easier when the underwriters have got a financial alignment to their bottom line in our ownership model?
Absolutely. I've worked in a few organisations, and I think this is the space whereby we do this probably the best, whereby bonuses are paid out over a multi-year period. So there is that kind of, making sure that we're not just profitable in the here and now, we're profitable in the longer term, which I think is critical. So yes, there is that, but I think again, I really do feel very proud of the underwriting business that's been built and the individuals within it. I think there's that collective mindset anyway to want to do the best for, the organisation, for our carriers and whatnot. So I think that exists, but definitely the financial, the way in which we incentivise is helpful.
It's ironic, isn't it? Everybody always used to talk about alignment of interest with MGAs, but I feel strongly that almost all of our underwriters are more aligned to their bottom line than pretty much any other underwriting business that I know of. Any
of the organisations I've been part of is all top line incentivised, right? And you always have the conversations around how you shift that model, and I've never seen a space whereby we've ever been able to do it except for coming to Rokstone. So it's a credit to the business.
So you've built a leadership career around being a mother. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And so tell me about that experience, what it was like returning, and what surprised you the most?
Well, you didn't just return to work, did you? You returned to work, took on a new bigger job about 2 months after coming back with a new child.
And that as well. Discuss.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. I love being a mom, first and foremost. But it's challenging, right? And I think you know before you become a parent, but you don't really, because every week is different, every night is different. Sometimes you get sleep, sometimes you don't.
I don't know if anyone else found this, but when you have your first child, walking out of the hospital like, it was so surreal for me. I just remember walking out of the hospital and like thinking, oh my goodness, this is mine.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Yeah, it's
because you feel a bit insulated in the hospital, don't you?
Sorting out the car seats.
The car seat, the first time.
The first day I was like, right, I want to get out of here by like, I think we left on day 3, and I was honestly trying to build a case to be able to stay. I was like, don't let me out.
Yeah.
For the defence.
Nice and safe here.
Yeah, exactly. People know what they're doing. This is great. Listen, it was hard. It was exciting coming back, because I think you're mentally exhausted, but in a very different way. And then you feel like you need that stimulation. I don't think I realised just how real the baby brain was going to be. I thought it was bad before we had our little baby girl, but after it was a hell of a lot worse. And I remember coming back for the Dare to Discover day, and I think I was up on stage for that, actually with both of you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Having a series of questions. And I swear to God, the week before that, I could barely string a sentence together. So I don't know how I did it. I was, not long postpartum. And but it was exciting. There was a rush to it. It was using my brain in a different way, and I was excited to kind of get back into the business, and knowing kind of some discussions we were having about the direction of travel with the business. I found that a real opportunity to be able to come back in and really shape and own something again, in a slightly different way. And thankfully, I had a great, my mat leave cover was Robin was absolutely fantastic and did a great job. So. I felt like the place was left in safe hands. I didn't feel kind of uncomfortable coming back, but it is different coming back, isn't it? So, the business doesn't stop; it continues to move on, and then you kind of come back and you're trying to find your feet again. So it's challenging, I think, coming back from mat leave, but thankfully, it's a great business, and everyone is incredibly, respectful of the fact that you've just gone through this big life shift.
So the most thing that surprised, the best thing that surprised you was that we hadn't blown it up in your absence.
I would never say that.
It's interesting though, isn't it? I think there will be a lot of people that worry that a kind of really, really senior, really intense in some respects career isn't compatible with family life, being a mother or a father, right? Young father. So what would you say? What would you say to those people?
I would say everything's doable, right? To say you can have it all is probably not quite true, right? Because I think something's got to give. It's challenging, it's exhausting. You're trying to be everything to everyone, but you fundamentally can't. So sometimes you don't get to do as much of the friend thing as you want to do, but the focus is family and career, and you hope that you've got the right kind of people around you who recognize and support that. But coming into a very big demanding role is challenging. I was still breastfeeding as a returning to work, and trying to juggle that into my workday schedule is next to near impossible. So it was challenging, but you figure it out, and you just hope that you've got the right kind of support network around you. And I felt like that I did internally within Rokstone, and I feel like I absolutely do at home as well. So I'm really fortunate returning to work and entering into a bigger role.
I do remember having video calls from Nadine from where she was dialing in from the coat cupboard in the office that I didn't know existed.
I found a space to be able to operate within my calendar. I'm like, I've got 30 minutes here.
Yeah.
Now's my opportunity. So.
I want to ask one more question on that though. So you are a genuine role model to not just women but people in Rokstone, but the industry as well, who are in strong positions with young children, balancing the two things. Are you conscious about the fact that the way that you manage your time, the way that you separate your life between home, are you conscious of the impact that has on, as an example, to young people who work in Rokstone, and how do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I spoke to a previous boss, and actually a mentor, I would say now, who has 5 kids and triplets. And I don't even know how he managed to do it. Honestly, if I ever had any appreciation or respect for him before, I've just got huge admiration now. And I think he said to me that what you're going to find is that your time is so precious that every minute that you're using counts, right? So you just have to become more effective. So, you know, I'm looking at my meetings that I'm going to. Do I need to be in it? How do I empower others around me to be able to make those decisions in those meetings and whatnot? So you just look at your time differently. And you know, when you're spending extra time in the office, and it's time that you're offsetting at home, and vice versa. So you've just got to be very efficient with your time.
So we're at the after dinner or after lunch mints now of the question set. If you were starting again, what would you say to yourself before day one?
What would I say to myself at day one? I would say take every opportunity that comes your way. I would say be an absolute sponge to absorb the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience that is around you. I would also say, you know, to recognize that, you know, as I've said earlier on, that every decision, you know, it doesn't sit in isolation. It has wider impact and consequences. And and embrace it and enjoy it. Insurance is really exciting.
Great answer.
It's true. It is actually super cool, isn't it? It touches absolutely everything that you could ever want to do, which is kind of what I met some graduates last week from, what university from? Appalachian State. And I find that insurance is, I would say this is the most boring word in the world when you don't know anything about the market. But it touches anything you're passionate about in life. Like, not everyone can be a footballer, but you can go into like professional sports insurance as a broker in Lloyd's.
That's a great point, yeah.
Anyone
the variety
can get
is incredible.
Because the bar's back that hot. Right, sorry. Next question. So if you could go to lunch with anyone in the world, who would you go with? And why?
Who would I go with and why? Okay, so I'm really impressed by, you probably don't know her, you might do, Emma Grade. So she's from the UK, I think living and operating out of the States now, but she's built some incredible brands. So she's CEO and founder to some of the biggest brands at the moment. So Skims being one, Good American being another, but she's seen gaps within the market. Skims started off as a shapewear company that has ultimately gone into activewear. They've just done a big collab with Nike. She's built that to being, I think it was recently valued at $5 billion and generating $1 billion in sales. So yeah, it's just incredibly impressive what she's done just with Skims alone, not to mention some of the other brands that she's operated on. And it's all through seeing a gap within the market and a need. So Good American is a denim company that ultimately, you know, didn't cater for all shapes and sizes, and she saw the gap and has and built an empire around it. So I think she's incredibly impressive. I'd love to sit down and have lunch with her and just talk about the strategic thinking that went into those growth models and engines that sit behind those brands.
Wow,
that's what we try and do, right?
Yeah, well, this is
spot
it.
Gaps.
It's spot
Gig
gaps within the
economy,
market, exactly. So I think she's just an absolute powerhouse and someone that I think would have a really interesting lunch.
Good answer.
So last question.
Mm-hmm.
Favourite restaurant and what are you ordering?
I love food. So probably everything on the menu. Favourite restaurant? God, I could pick 1,000,001 restaurants. There's so many great restaurants in London. But I think I would go back home. So I'd go back to Ireland and go to Mary Barry's. So Mary Barry's is a local restaurant close to the sea, and the chef there, I worked with him for about 10 years, but the chef there, I've known him for over 20. He unfortunately passed away last year, but he was absolutely fantastic, and he's built an incredible team around him, and his food is amazing. So I would go and I would order probably chicken vol au vent for a starter, and then I would order maybe some pan-fried sole, and I would finish with a sticky toffee pudding with some ice cream. So it's not the healthiest of lunches, but that's what I would do.
Well, look,
it's been a great. It's great to have you on the show, and great to get your perspective. So thank you, Nadine, for coming on and telling everyone about your career and what we're doing at Rokstone.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for having me.
You're a rock star. Everyone loves working with Rokstone. Thanks for everything you do. Great examples. Thank you very
much for having me.
Thank you. That's it for this week's episode of Virtual Lunch.
Subscribe now so you don't miss an episode.
We'll be back next week. Same time, same table. See you then.